Hey there, this is Perch. This is a bit self-indulgent. I did an introduction, like the first video, kind of talking a little bit about what I wanted the channel to be and kind of the topics I was going to kind of take on and also what I was going to stay away from. I noticed yesterday as I'm uploading videos that I'd crossed the 100 mark some time ago and was kind of rounding on 150. And it just struck me. That's a lot of videos. That's a lot of content. I don't know, who's listening to this every day or whenever you're listening to it. I want to give a real heartfelt thank you to you. For me, this is almost self therapy. I'm just talking as I commute. That's why you have this lousy audio. I have this feeling, by the way, there's a setting on the phone that if I just like click it, it will be make audio not crappy, and I just need to push that button and things would be better. I don't know. I'm always in awe of I see these other videos and the sound is just so good. But we work with what we have. But so I drive and the commute is at times boring and painful. And one thing that's changed over the years is I used to have a lot of conversations, either with customers or with guy I work with. There's a guy I work with that I always wanted to do a podcast or something with, and I at one point maybe I'll figure out how to get him in, and the two of us can banter. When we talk, it's like a podcast. It's funny, but we get into topics that would get us both fired from the jobs we were working on, or get me boycotted from the store. So that's no good. But there's some other things to talk about. Sorry, it's a bit of a deviation. I know I really want to thank you because if you're listening to this, it means a lot to me. I didn't do this channel to get 10,000 subscribers. I joke on Twitter from time to time about that I don't have these subs, and I see mainly I do that when I see another channel or I listen to a video and it starts off with kind of this big bleating of I've got 20,000 subscribers and I'm super popular. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, I get that. That's cool, and everybody wants to grow and be popular and so on. But that's not why I got into this. I I'm doing it because I like those conversations that I have with people, and I don't have as many of them as I used to. And so this is like half the conversation. And one of these days, I'll get into doing some live streams or something like that. But what I'd really like to do is have it be almost like a full on call in show where people can join, and as long as they're not just screeching or being insane, they can just come and go as they want. That'd be cool. I'm sure that exists out there, and I'll have to set that up. I do have a lot of interviews, so I've already recorded about 6 interviews with various comic creators and people, and I'm hoping to get to about 10. What I want to do is very planned out, have an interview a week. So I want to get to the point that I have about 3 months worth of interviews in the can, as they say, lined up, so that I can keep that cadence going and not have like a couple interviews and then a long drought period and then a couple interviews. And the way I'm doing the interviews, have done them, is I get on and I do a private stream with another person. We talk. I edit it down, and then I send the edit to the person who I did the interview with to say, just confirm, am I representing you the way you want to be represented? I want them comfortable with it. And then I call it good. They're all coming in about they're all coming in about 15, 20 minutes long. Trying to keep them short. It's more like what you would hear on a TV segment, on a news channel or something, and less like what you get on a live stream. I'm trying to be a little bit more focused with that. So I think that's a thing that's coming. But the weird part, and this is a little bit of prediction time, is that um, I think that there's going to be a shift in comics and social media and the community and the conversation relatively soon. And I say that because the fighting is starting to burn itself out. I think the bad actors, the people who are here just to kind of stir up trouble and complain on all sides, and they're definitely on all sides, they're either getting banned out of existence or they're losing interest or the fight isn't that fun. Or a couple of them are, blocking everybody who disagreed with them to try and hide from another shit. I mean, there's things that are going on. A couple people I think are trying to make the lift from um, troublemaker into legitimate and kind of join that indie scene. One frequent target of, of people who also paints the target on her back seems to be heading in that direction. And I'm like, that's great news because there's just I think that we're going to hit a big change where it's not going to become happy times by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just, you saw this with kind of early internet when people would get into big fights and arguments there. There comes a point where people just kind of burn themselves out and it's not as entertaining. They've kind of fought about all the topics. And then it goes into a phase where people are still fighting, but it really feels like they're just going through the motions. They're saying the same kind of dumb things and it's just not really going anywhere. And that feels like the phase we're in right now. You look at a lot of the fight, there's not as much heat in it. It's just kind of like lazy punches being thrown. And what comes after that is just ignore. And people try and get to new things to talk about and think about. And that's what I'm hoping on this channel and these conversations that we have. I hope more people can take this approach. There's a lot of great shows out there, which is less can you believe they did this outrage and more just, hey, let's work together to try and find something we enjoy out of this hobby, this thing, this industry, this business, whatever it is. And what would be really nice, although I don't think it will come, is a true platform for a couple different people to enter the scene. So, I've talked in the past about there's cliques within comics, and there absolutely are, and that's not on the surface sinister. There's nothing inherently wrong about that. You have networking groups, and you have people in comics who do their thing, and there's little pods, and it's not hard to tell. The pods people tend to work together. They tend to stay in their circles and so on. And a couple of people kind of transcend it. I think Scott Snyder's an example of a guy who, he's friends with a lot of people, but he kind of is his own circle. He's got definitely people he likes to work with. So he has like a micro network, but it's not as much as others, and what would be really nice is if, the outcome of all this fighting and all this conversation and all this, war on ideology is if we could produce a few more of those circles, a few more networks of people who are truly out to help each other and create content. And so I've been critical, not critical is probably too strong a word, but um, I've been not all the way on board with a lot of the crowdfunding Indiegogo stuff, Kickstarter stuff. It's not because I don't want that vehicle out. It's not because I'm a comic shop and I don't get access to that stuff. Not at all. In fact, I've certainly gone in on some of the campaigns, many of the campaigns, so I could then turn around and sell stuff in the shop, which I've done. I technically, a lot of these crowdfunding people should say not for resale as part of their game, but they don't say that. Anyway, there needs to be that next step. Like we've talked about, there needs to be the next moment. And I think I have a video on crowdfunding coming up sooner or later, but there needs to be another moment where these crowdfunded things can be less of an individual effort and more of a group. And when I say more of a group, I mean where all parts of the group can help it move, not where, the group relies on one individual or one kingmaker within the group to promote it. And so let me get into this really quickly. I think, Ethan Van Sciver has been for lack of a better word, a kingmaker for a lot of Indiegogo, a lot of Kickstarter projects. And that's fine. A lot of people, I don't know, a lot of people, but some people complain about that. They call him a gatekeeper. They call him all, these various things. I think that's a little bit silly. It's kind of, it feels jealous to me. You've got a guy who has an audience, who's willing to put money into things, who when Ethan will say, go follow this channel, people will follow the channel. And so he's got that ability and that power. He's got it because he got his audience, he didn't buy his audience. If he had bought his audience and bought followers, like a lot of people do, then you wouldn't see the money and the traffic flow to these other projects. So, he's able to do that. And I don't think that's a bad thing. A lot of people point to it being a bad thing, but it's just a fact of life. If right now Scott Snyder on his Twitter account became more of a I don't know, promoter of certain things. He's like, this artist is good, this writer is good, this project is good, you should follow him. You'd see the same effect as you do with Ethan. In fact, you'd see a much bigger effect because Snyder has an even bigger audience that he talked to and listened to. But what I think is necessary when I say that next step, it's where there's a vehicle for these things to get promoted and hyped and attention drawn to them that isn't reliant on a person. It's not reliant on a Scott Snyder or an Ethan Van Sciver or a whoever. It's reliant upon the network itself. So if for example, a creator comes in, they have good work, they have pages, they have story, they have something that looks good and can be marketed, it needs a vehicle in which to, get promoted, get marketing attached to it, get out into, digital or the stores or wherever it's going, that isn't reliant upon a person, a Snyder or Van Sciver personally hyping it. It's more of a network, of a group. And that's what I'm hoping comes out. We've had all this fighting. So what we have is we've had some very clear lines being drawn between types of comics people like, ideologies. I like a more action-based comic versus I'd like a more lifestyle-based comic, whatever. There's room in the world for all of these things. There is. So now, how can those markets find their audience in a healthier way? That's what I'm looking for. And I think over the next year, that's where I'm going to put both time and money into, and specifically money. I've talked with Peter Simeti about this in the past. I've got funding, and I would like to put that funding places. I'd like to grow some of these avenues, but it needs to be a true vehicle where these things can get published and go. Another video we talked about Scholastic. There's a lot to learn from what they're doing, and more importantly, how they're delivering to their market, the talent they're going out, finding, curating, promoting, and then getting into the hands of people. We've talked about Telmiger and Pilkey. We've talked about some of the success stories, but it's the middle tier of Scholastic that's probably even more interesting. These are creators who are, making, the same, have the same impact, same shipping, same volume as kind of some of the top comics by the publishers. You don't necessarily hear about them because, Dogman sells the equivalent of everything the publisher has done for the month in one go, and then some. And Telmiger is just I don't pronounce the name right, but is a beast in terms of sales. I mean, these two are just killing it, but that middle tier is doing really successful. So that's a little bit of what I want to keep talking about, what I want to do. I'm also going to dive more into history, kind of what are some comics we like, what do we think, give some opinions on various topics, various ideas, and I'll end this where I finished. God, I can't talk for anything. I'll end this where I started. End this where I finished. Hopefully you're laughing at this. You see this guy, trying to navigate bad drivers on the road and talk intelligently at the same time. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening. Every single view, every single person, every time somebody, tweets, hey, this is good, or anytime somebody says anything, it is a boost. And that's all deal with social media, right? You like something and somebody gets a little dopamine hit and they're happy. But it's better. It's more than that for me. When you guys, watch, view, comment, even if your comment is like, I totally disagree, it still makes me very happy. That engagement, I love, and I all in, much respect, much love to the people who are listening and following along. Thank you. It means the world to me. It really does. It's a tiny little thing, but it really matters. So thank you very much. And let's keep going. We'll find some other things to talk about. As always, send me your suggestions. I do get to them. You may be saying, I send those in and I don't hear anything. No, trust me, I record on all the things you suggest. It just, I'm months ahead. So I either have to start putting out like 3 or 4 videos a day, or, something is changing, because by the current pace, I think I will have a video a day in the bank, scheduled, planned to be released through Christmas by probably by the first week of June. So, yikes. Thanks for listening, everybody.